Hey everybody, I just clocked out, and unfortunately I am here to talk about how both the Denver Nuggets and the Colorado Avalanche went out sad in the playoffs this year. That's a direct quote from the Hockey Mountain High podcast. I'm going to be referencing them a few different times based on their kind of instant analysis after Game 4 of the Avalanche series against Vegas. So I just want to say thank you to them. I think they do a great job. I'll try not to steal too much of your stuff here. But yeah, I was thinking about this, and earlier this season, Josh Kroenke, who is the president of both the Avalanche and the Nuggets, was saying, he's talking a big game, basically. He had said that, both of these teams have won the championship. Now the last thing to do is to win both of them in the same year. And as a fan, I've got my Nuggets sweater on right now. I was really excited about that because it seemed possible. It seemed realistic, actually, for a long time in the middle of the season. The Nuggets looked really, really good. The Avalanche looked absolutely awesome. They looked borderline unbeatable. But it didn't work out that way. Life is not a fairy tale. You don't always get the ending that you want, but it's not the ending. It's the end of this season. There will be another one. Life will go on. And pursuant to that, wanted to jump on here and give my thoughts on, kind of what happened with these two teams and what might need to change for them to reach the pinnacle again, so to speak. I'm going to start off with some kind of common threads between both teams, and then I think the rest of this video after that I'll spend talking about the Nuggets, and then I'll do a second part on the Avalanche in particular because I have a little more in mind there. It's fresher. I am just more of a hockey fan in general. I played hockey growing up, so I've got a little more in my mind with them. So to start off with the things that both these teams had in common, obviously both former champions, both have arguably the best player in their sport on the teams, Nikola Jokic for the Nuggets and Nathan MacKinnon and Cale Makar, for that matter, for the Avalanche. And both had, tough losses last year, but losses that showed that they were really close. For the Nuggets last year, they won a really fun 7-game series against the Clippers, where the Clippers just kind of broke down toward the end of that series. And then in the second round, we pushed the Thunder to the brink. We were able to steal Game 1. Got really, really close to winning Game 4, which would have put us up 3-1 against them, which would have been crazy. But, the Nuggets just kind of ran out of gas by the end of the series. They had like 6.5 players that they could realistically put on the floor. And it took a special performance from Julian Strawther in Game 6 to get into a Game 7 in the first place, which he, as I will get into, was not expected to do then and is still not expected to do now because he's not a real rotation player for the Nuggets. But yeah, the Nuggets, it was just clear, hey, this team's really good. We just need to retool the roster, get some more pieces in here, and we should be just fine. For the Avalanche, on the other hand, it was the first time that Gabe Landeskog had played in a few years, and it was a very emotional series because of that. Also because of Mikko Rantanen being on the other side playing for Dallas. Obviously, he had an amazing performance in Game 7. He had a hat trick. I thought it should never have gone to a Game 7. I thought that if we had made some adjustments earlier in the series, I think we probably could have wrapped it up in 6. But, the team played it really, really hard. Our best players played very well. And it was just ran into a great player on the other side. And he had a great game, a great few games, really. And that continued into their next series against the Winnipeg Jets in the second round. But again, the takeaway was that the team was very close. Landeskog was back. It felt like the vibe around the team was really different after he had come back into the fold. He brought just a whole new element to the team that he has. And so, again, it seemed like they were really close, just some small tweaks, and we'd be right back in the hunt this year. And, both teams, not only did they look like they were really, really close last year, at the end of the postseason, they both got off to really good starts in the regular season. The Avalanche, especially, were rolling after the first 10 games, all the way. I think at the new year, I think on January 3rd, they were like 31-2-5 or something like that. I mean, it was just insane. The Nuggets, I don't remember what their record was, but they were really, really good. They were right behind San Antonio for the 2 seed before Jokic got hurt on December 29th, or it might have been December 31st, actually, when they were playing the Heat. Looked like that was going to sink the season. It really didn't. The team did get a lot deeper over the summer last year, and that depth, all of those guys stepped up big time and kept the team afloat and kept them in the middle of the standings until Jokic came back about a month later. But, as promising as it looked for both teams, they, again, like I said, they just went out sad. Like they flipped really, really quickly from looking like a contender to going home. In the Nuggets, that happened over the course of one series. In game 1, they dominated the Wolves, and then game 2, they were kicking their ass in the first half, and then the Wolves made a comeback, made it look like it was going to be an interesting series from then on out. And then, of course, they won 2 more games in a row, even with crazy injuries. And then from there, it was just, the Nuggets just looked like they were broken. And eventually they won another game, but then lost in 6 in Minnesota. And then for the Avalanche, they dominated the first 2 rounds of the playoffs. They went 8-1. Probably should not have won Game 5 against the Minnesota Wild. They probably should have gone back to St. Paul for Game 6, but made a crazy comeback in the third, won it in overtime, and then got into the conference finals against Vegas. And Vegas just had the perfect game plan for us, with Makar being out the first 2 games and then clearly being limited when he came back, Game 3 and Game 4. They played a very conservative defense. They were content to let shots come in from the point. They blocked a ton of shots, and when pucks got through, they cleaned up rebounds and then broke it out very efficiently going up the other way. They just, even though the Avs dominated in terms of shots, shot attempts, high danger chances, all that stuff, the scoreboard was all Vegas through that series. And you could tell in the middle of Game 3 that the team was broken. They had no answers. And then, McKinnon getting hurt in Game 3 was just the cherry on top, right? Both of these teams clearly have some mental blocks that they need to work out. Both of these teams fell apart mentally pretty quickly. And, I think for the Avalanche, part of that is coaching. I think part of that is coaching for the Nuggets as well. David Adelman this is his first year being a head coach. Probably didn't have any answers. Part of it is wear and tear, for the For the Nuggets, like I said, Jokic got hurt in the middle of the year. This is the first time that he's ever really been injured for any significant stretch of time. Peyton Watson was also hurt for significant stretches of the year. And then Aaron Gordon was not right at all the entire year, and especially not in the playoffs. And Gordon and Watson are really, really big factors for this team. I think bigger than they would be anywhere else. And I'll get into that in a second here, but their athleticism just gives the Nuggets a whole new dimension that they didn't have in the series against the Wolves. And then, looking at the Avalanche as well, had a lot of Olympians on this team. A lot of Canadian guys in particular, who went deep into that tournament and came up short in a pretty gut-wrenching loss for them. Like I said, Makar was banged up. McKinnon got hurt eventually toward the end of Game 3. But I mean, for both teams, injuries are no excuse. In the NHL playoffs, everybody gets banged up. Everybody's dealing with something by the end of it, and even for your two best players, that really should, if anything, that should galvanize the rest of your team to fight even harder. And the exact opposite happened. Everybody quit on the Avalanche except for Landeskog and Brent Burns. Those are really the only guys who kept fighting all the way to the end of Game 4. Everybody else was ready to pack it in. And then for the Nuggets, I mean, the injury thing is even crazier because Anthony Edwards missed multiple games. Dante DiVincenzo tore his Achilles, missed multiple games. I think that was in Game 2 or Game 3 that he tore his Achilles. Ayo Dosunmu had a crazy game in the middle of the series to just take over and win that one. I think that was Game 3. But he got banged up later on as well. So it was just, like I said, even though Gordon and Watson fill a very specific role on this team, the overall balance of injuries favored the Nuggets. And so I think that's a good kind of jumping off point for talking about the Nuggets a little more in detail. I think this really is a roster construction thing for them. I think that they just need more guys who can put pressure on the rim. I think, Gordon is not getting any younger. Watson has not always been available. And then on the flip side, I think that it's probably time to sell high on Jamal Murray. I think he had a really, really good and really healthy season this year. That's, the history suggests that that's not going to happen again. And so I think there are trades to be made for involving him, sending him out somewhere and getting back another guard or two who can attack the rim a little bit more. I think you keep Gordon just because he, leadership-wise and culture-wise, I think is really important to this team. You try to clear up a little space so that you can sign Watson, because teams are definitely going to give him offer sheets this summer, especially the Lakers. So I think there are some trades that I can run through in the next part involving Murray to try to shake things up a little bit there. But I will see you in part 2.